Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for still joining in this session after your long day. This session, we are going to discuss about the Japan compensation system for adverse obstetric gynecology. Well, what really it is, you will learn after Dr. Chin start his talk. In this session, we were going to learn the experience from Japan. We have with us Professor Shin Yuichiro on my left. Professor Shin is an executive director of Japan Council of Quality Health Care. It's just an organization like HA Thailand, but it's covered the whole country of Japan. So he's a very important person for quality accreditation in Japan. But actually, he's a professor in Kyushu?
Kyushu, yes.
In Kyushu University Hospital. This morning, he gave his talk on the adverse event reporting system, which is directly under his responsibility. And you have heard about that. But in this session, he's going to deliver his organization's experience in the compensation system. Well, Dr. Chin has worked with WHO in this adverse event reporting, and also you have good connection with worldwide global accreditation organization. On my right, we will have Professor Pisek Lumpikanon. I think all of you know him. He is a respected OBGYN. He's the former dean of the faculties of medicine, Khon University. And the most important is that right now he is the current president of the Royal Thai College of Obstetric and Gynecology of Thailand. I will try to set the agenda first. Then I will give the floor to Dr. Chin. He will go to his full preparation about the Japanese compensation. After that, Professor Pisek will talk about the experience in Thailand and his comment about the Japan issue. And then we will open the floor and hope to get active participation from, I believe that there are a lot of the OBGYN colleagues in this room, or they may come in. Well, I just said that in 1999, the Institute of Medicine, IOM, delivered the report. This is considered to be a landmark report. This report generated wide public media coverage and also alarming response from public. Why? Because in this report, it gave the figure that only in the United States of America, 44,000 to 98,000 patients die each year because of preventable medical error. A lot of doctors would not believe in this figure. But anyway, it's also mentioned that the death caused by preventable medical error is more than death from car accident, from breast cancer, from AIDS. That is well known to public in the United States at that moment. Whether we believe that figure or not, I think there's certain fact that we could gather. The first one is that adverse event real happen. But not all adverse event is the result of medical error. It may be the unavoidable complication of treatment, or it may be the limitation of the equipment. It's not, it just adverse event happen, but not from medical error. Another fact is that we also know that even though they are medical error, but most medical error is not human error, it's a system error. Because the process of treatment have complex the cause is complex. So it's not easy to pinpoint who is to be blamed for that adverse event. Most of you may be familiar with this Swiss cheese model. In our healthcare process, there is a lot of steps involve different professionals, and person at the end who deliver care to the patient is an unlucky guy. But he may not be the real person who is responsible for the error. However, we know that whether it's the result of the report or not, but there are more and more malpractice cases filing to court for compensation. Actually, in the Western country, it's much more than in Thailand, but Thailand is also getting up. I just give the figure from the National Health Security Office. This is the case filing for preliminary compensation, more 40. Well, it seems to be rising, but maybe there's more awareness that they get the compensation. I don't know. Yeah. Actually, most of the cases are in obstetric. Most of the cases are in obstetric. That's why we take this issue today. And we all know that when adverse events happen, patient and relative will be uncertain, question what's the reason why it's happened. And because of that, it's also generate pain, suffering, and they just don't understand. And also the financial burden that will occur after the adverse event. All this quite often lead to malpractice compensation suit. In Thailand, it's not only for financial compensation. In certain cases, they also bring it to the criminal court. I think we all know that, we all learn that normal court procedure is not a satisfactory mechanism to settle all this conflict. Because according to the court procedure, in order to get the compensation, you need to prove that there is negligence. Somebody is doing something wrong because of his negligence or not, understand that before the court can grant the compensation to you. That means that the patient and his relative will have to start with the blame to the doctors or to the care team that you are doing something wrong, you are negligent in order to get, to continue the process in the court. With that, certainly it creates conflict. It disrupts the relationship between the doctor and the patient. And also, the process is traumatic. All parties suffer. And the process is very time consuming. I know certain cases last more than 10 years before they end up at the third court, highest court. But in general, it's more than 5 years. And also, it's high cost. And we know that almost 40 to 50% of the costs go to the fighting in the court. It's not the money that the patient and relative will receive from the caregiver if they found negligent. But the most important is that when you bring the case to court, you're never sure how the result will come out. And we in the medical profession, I think we learned that in certain cases we think that this is clear cut, we should win. But still, the court had different opinion. So that I said the problem to you. We are looking for the alternative. Is there any good system, better system to settle this conflict? We come across the system in Japan. During the last ISQA meeting in Tokyo, I have listened to Dr. Shin and his colleague talking again and again on the Japanese system to deal with this problem. So I will give the floor to Dr. Shin, and we will learn the whole story from Dr. Shin. Thank you, please.
Okay. I'd like to. No, I have a microphone, but I'd like to have the switch. Yes. And then. Yes, yes. Could you extend the slide? Good afternoon, everybody. Sawadee krap. I am Dr. Yoshio from Japan. In the first place, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude for the invitation to this very valuable opportunities and allow me to make a presentation on our compensation system, which has been working very well in Japan. And on behalf of JQ, Japan Council for Quality Healthcare, I'd like to thank Dr. Spachai and my other Thai colleagues for this occasion. So let's start with my talk. And this morning, I made a presentation on nationwide adverse event reporting system in Japan. And one of them corresponds to, Cerebral Palsy Investigation, Prevention, Compensation System. This is a sort of a reporting system incentivized by non-fault-based compensation, monetary compensation. I'd like to, this is just to give you an idea of the background of this compensation system. About 10 years ago, what we have suffered in Japan is the shortage of, I'm sorry, I'm very, very sorry. Okay, shortage of what happened? Maybe I should use it. Shortage of obstetrician and the long working hours, and many obstetricians burned out, and the rising lawsuit cases, for instance, cerebral palsy cases, brain damage cases, and the low birth rate as well. So the study committee was launched in a leading political party. And they published a report. The title is shown here. In the report, they say, the political party said that it is often difficult to determine malpractice in cases of healthcare accident during delivery, and are often contended in court. The frequent disputes is one of the reasons for the shortage of obstetricians. So it also says that in order to secure safe and trustworthy perinatal care, which benefit not only obstetricians, but also guardians, A, B, and C should be put into effect immediately. The number one, this corresponds to A, compensate the patients who developed a disability possibly due to obstetric adverse events, and bring conflict to settlement as early as possible, and establish a mechanism that improves quality of obstetric care by investigating causes of cerebral palsy. So what happens when a baby develops cerebral palsy is shown here. Usually we see normal history of pregnancy. However, it happens that the child develops cerebral palsy. If the case is negligent, compensation according to liability payment rule in civil court is paid to families and babies. But if there is no negligence in the case, there is no compensation. But those cases often goes to lawsuit, or often goes to court. So that's the problem happening in Japan 10 years ago. And actually, it happens everywhere in the world. I will show you the sample of the US. This is a newspaper article in the US. This child develops cerebral palsy, and the guardians of her guardians sued the hospital, St. Charles Hospital, to court, and then they won the money as much as $130 million in the end. This is an enormous amount of money. It's very incredible. So I wrote an email to the writer of this article in the US, and I said that it never happens in Japan in terms of the amount of money. Furthermore, now we have obstetric compensation system in Japan, so it never happens in that meaning as well. I got a reply from the writer, and he is really interested in our compensation system. So this is the second example in the US. Obstetricians in Florida state got out of the state because of the rising insurance premiums due to the rising lawsuit cases of obstetric and gynecology. So the state, Florida state, built up a compensation system, but the family do not use this system very often, and then they often goes to court. So similar situation was in Japan 10 years ago. The Japanese obstetricians, for instance, Professor Emeritus Takashi Okai, who wrote this book entitled Nofault, Takashi Okai. She is an obstetrician in trouble. Professor Emeritus Takashi Okai of Showa University, author of this book, depicted how risky it is to be engaged in delivery in Japan from medical and legal point of view. The story of the book gave a scenario of TV drama, which was effective to raise public awareness in Japan. So in 2009, according to the report published by leading political party, we, JQ, as an operator, established and launched the compensation system, which has two major pillars. The first pillar is no fault-based compensation system. We do not argue if it's negligent or not during the process of approval. And the second pillar is the investigation and prevention. And we investigation each cases, individual cases, and we craft investigational report 20 to 30 pages long, and we deliver it both to childbirth facilities and guardians as well. So let me go over what no fault means in our system. No fault compensation means compensation irrespective of negligence. So we do not place any consideration on whether this case is malpractice or not malpractice during our review process for approval. So actually, to be honest, there is no legal background, no law for this compensation system. But the Japanese obstetrician united very firmly. So the group of obstetricians, almost all of them, registered this compensation system. So 99.9% of childbirth facilities in Japan registered in this system. What you see here is the entire working flow of approval of investigation and prevention. In the first place, childbirth facility files petition for compensation. And then we approve the case in approval committee by examining eligibility. And we start payment, monetary compensation. And then we start investigation, and we craft investigational report. And investigational report aggregates. Now we have already published more than 1,000 investigational reports, so many. And so we put those investigational reports on collective analysis, and we withdraw lessons from those aggregated cases. And we conduct preventive activity by distributing our knowledge for improving quality and safety in obstetric care. So in the series of coming slides, coming 7 slides maybe, I'm going to talk about the financing of our compensation system, how we get money for compensation.